Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of the People's Success Circle. Today, I am honored to have a special guest. Her name is Dr. Cindy Young, and she has recently written a book. Really, just immediately when I heard the title of the book, knew that this was exactly what my readers would love to hear. Because as a networking expert and an HR professional, I often hear about how introverts feel in the workplace. And I didn't want to miss the opportunity to bring on Cindy. So, Cindy, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, great. So, my podcast is all about the people side of business. And as an HR leader, I have just seen men and women in their careers often think that being an introvert has held them back, or maybe they miss out on opportunities. And so I'm just excited to dive in and hear your perspective on these things. But before we do that, would you mind giving an overview of your background and what led you to where you are today?
Okay. Well, as you said, I'm Dr. Cindy Young. I first came in the military when I was 18,
Mm,
and then I did a bunch of different tours on ships, and because women were allowed on ships about halfway through actually about third way through my time in the Navy, and I did 23 years. I retired when I was 41, and so I still have a lot of years to work.
yeah.
And so I went and became a defense contractor.
Okay.
And I have really felt like an introvert my whole life. I'm married to an extrovert, and so it's quite obvious when you see myself and my husband that I'm an introvert, and I prefer to stay inside where it's quiet. I don't like parties. I am very much in my head a lot. And so I really started writing because it was a good way to get my thoughts out there. So I write a lot for big people like Forbes. I've written for HBR. I've written for a bunch of other people, little things. Been a guest on several articles, and I just feel like introverts are really good at internal thoughts. But there's
Mm,
ways in the organizations that you need to be better at it. And so I thought I'm going to write this book about introverts and how invisible we all feel and what we can do about it.
mm, mhm. It's such a great topic, and I did not realize that we have the military connection too. So my husband served 21 years, but in the Marine Corps, and also retired at 41. So
Yeah.
just a really great experience, and I'm sure that that has really helped shape who you are as well. Because I think there's few things as formative as being in the military and serving.
Thank you. It's definitely an eye opener. You can't really be an introvert um, in the old fashioned sense of you just stay quiet because you have to be able to give orders and take orders
Yeah.
and account. You have accountability on everything you're charged with. And in my role, I was a department on the ship, so that was like I was the third in command on my ship. And so I was a senior female as well as a senior officer below
Mm,
the CO and the XO. And so I had to be able to speak in front of people at any time and give
yeah.
them, latest and greatest and what's going on and what I expected. So a lot of people get that confused with being introvert because
Mm,
they see I'm a public speaker as well. They think that, when people look at me, they think that I must be mixed up. I must be, really
mm.
an extrovert. Like, no, I'm an introvert. And when I go speak, I generally stay at the host hotel just so I can go back to my room
Mm.
and get a break from people.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. Well, thank you for your service. Really appreciate that. And I admire women in the military because I do know that oftentimes the minority and it takes courage to be such a strong leader. So thank you for that. Now, I would love to dive in a little bit for the book, but before I uh, do that, tell me what inspired you to write this. What was the fire that made you say this knowledge needs to be put in a book?
Yeah. I, I have been through, as you'll see later in my book, I've been through a lot of times where I feel like I've been overlooked.
Mm,
Because the military is easy when it comes to promotions. There's certain rules that you have to fit in, and you have to do certain things. You have to attend certain schools. You have to take tests, and
mhm,
there's no secret. Sometimes it's just time and service to get your promotion.
mm,
But being a defense contractor, there's a totally different set of rules, and it's really up to your company to decide when you get promoted. and I found I was being passed up because people didn't get to know me.
Mm.
They all didn't know what I could do because I would just do my job and I would stay real quiet about it. They have an expression, and your husband may have said it, "Shut up and color."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
you
have
shut
heard
up.
that.
Yeah, you shut up, you do your job, you color, and you stay inside the lines, and you just do your job, and
Mhm.
that should be enough. And I found that in the world, it's not enough.
Mm-mm.
They
Yeah.
expect you to do other things, but I didn't want to play all those office politics, and I didn't want to play all the games, and I call them reindeer games. I didn't want to play all those games. I just wanted to come into my job, and then I found that there's some things I could do, and I learned how to do them. I had a good mentor, and I learned how to do certain skills, and I learned how to evaluate myself, SWOT analysis, and my knowledge, skills, and abilities, and look at all that stuff HR asks you for all the time.
Yeah.
And I learned how to do that. So I wanted to share all that, and that's why I wrote the book.
Mhm. Mhm. So it's interesting that you say that because I do think that many people of all generations feel that people should notice the good work that they're doing and that should be enough. And I do think there's times when that is enough. But if we rely on that as the sole way of being seen and promoted, many people can often miss out.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that people miss. You got to speak up for yourself,
Right. Right.
but you don't necessarily have to do that at a golf tournament or at a bar. You can
Mhm.
speak up for yourself at work
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
leading a conversation or by sharing something that you've done well or something that you
Mhm.
made a mistake on that you've learned how
Yeah.
to fix.
Yeah. So I love that you said it doesn't have to happen in the bar or on a golf course, right? It can happen strategically at work. So, what do leaders need to know to look out for in their more introverted employees?
Well, they can go up there and talk to them and ask
Hmm.
them, "Hey, what do you think of this?" At a meeting, they may ask them a pointed question. While that may feel uncomfortable, it's best to get used to it because, if you want to one day move up in the company, because this book isn't just about being promoted. You don't have to get promoted if you don't want to, but there are ways to get promoted.
Yeah.
There's, there's things that, you can give them a special project and just see how they do, kind of test the waters like
Hmm.
that. I mean, I
Yeah.
start off doing things like mind mapping.
Tell me what that is.
Mind mapping is where you have a central idea and then you basically branch out from it and you categorize those things. So you can write a book with it. You can do business development with it.
Hmm.
For a proposal, you can have like labor rates and manpower, all sorts of things and just, branch out like that. But then you can also just take notes using mind mapping.
Hmm.
It's a
Hmm.
very simple thing. You can do it with paper and pencil, post-it notes, and even programs have mind mapping.
Okay.
Just an easy tool. A lot of
Yeah.
people do it without even realizing that it
Yeah.
is a thing.
And is that something that you think is a good tool for introverts to get
I
their
think it's a
thoughts
good
out
tool
on
for
paper?
anybody. I don't think I called
Okay.
it out specifically because
Mhm.
I use it all the time,
Okay.
but I know a lot of other people who use it. We just don't call it that.
Yeah.
It just might be their style of note taking.
It just be okay, that makes sense. So you talk about being invisible in your early part of your Navy career. Can you share an example or a time when invisibility became just impossible for you to ignore and how it shaped how you approached your leadership?
Well, I didn't really feel invisible in the military because military was easy, but I felt invisible at my first job after the Navy. That was because I went into my boss and he would say, "Well, if you need to talk to me, come talk to me." And I'd go and talk to him. And this is back when I was division manager, when I had made it up to the top. And he would he would talk to me for a minute, and then his phone would ring or his text would go off, and he'd pick up his phone, and it just drove me nuts. I felt so ignored. Or he would wait for somebody else to come by and talk to them like they were more interesting to talk about because I just want
Mhm.
to talk about work and them away, and these other people are coming there to BS with them. But so that made me feel really invisible. And I think after I got in the job as being division manager, I left there like 6 months later after working all
Because
my
of
way.
that
Yeah.
work environment?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that was a turning point for you, and what did you do after that?
Well, I came to another company and I'm doing a job that I actually kind of did when I was in the military. I work with a Tomahawk missile.
Mm.
And so I used to be a curriculum developer and then my boss retired and I ended up getting his job because I was vocal about
Yeah.
wanting a job, and
Okay.
I offered to do things. I offered to, when he took vacation, I offered to write the weekly report,
Mhm.
just things I could do to get better at what he did.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be such a hard thing. But, you know, I, I, I got the job. So I've been in the job about 3 years now.
Oh, that's great. So most companies unintentionally reward extroverted behavior. What does this bias for extroversion look like in hiring and performance and team dynamics?
Well, I think it looks like the loudest person in the room.
Mm,
I think that, a lot of times people will say, "Well, who would you put in the job?" And they'll always point to the person that's loudest. They won't
mm,
necessarily point to the person that's the better team player, but the person that's louder. And
mm.
sometimes that louder person's good for getting attention of the customer if the customer likes that, but sometimes that's off-putting to the customer.
Yeah.
Inside a company, that might be what they think the customer wants is somebody who can speak up, and so that they get the first look.
Hmm.
And I've been passed over by that happened to me before. I've been passed over for positions I wanted because I actually
Yeah.
applied to be a division manager before I got it, and I wasn't selected. They actually selected outside my company,
Wow. Okay.
so and it was very interesting, when I
Hmm.
went back and looked at that.
Yeah. So tell us about the book. What are the main things that it tackles and who is the target audience?
All right, well, I love my book. Um,
Yeah.
you can't really see it very well, but, here is the invisible person.
Okay.
Outline person, and then the word invisible is supposed to be really, really light. If you see it in person, it looks a little bit different just 'cause it's so dark.
Mhm.
But,
Mhm.
I originally wrote it, for introverted women who worked in male-dominated industries because those are
Okay.
industries I'm used to,
Yeah.
male-dominated industries.
Yeah, sure, the government.
And
Yeah.
even when I taught, 'cause I taught at a local university for a couple of years,
Mhm.
there was there were always a couple women there that worked at big university or big, companies that had to deal with the men in there, and they talked to me,
Mhm.
and so I thought about them, and then I thought about women in other industries that were male-dominated.
Mhm.
I thought, "Well, this would be a good book for them," and then I sort of kinda got, a little bit sidetracked where it should become for all men or all women
All
and men.
introverts.
Yeah, all introverts. I mean, a lot of us focus on women, but really this can apply to both women and men.
Yeah, for sure, because there are many male introverts. It's definitely not something that is just related to women, and I can imagine that men get passed over for the same reason, right?
I was gonna say, what I put in the book is I have a thing called the career growth strategy,
Mhm.
and that is my plan. 6 chapters. That's chapters 4 through 9 go through how you can increase your visibility, how you can pull out your knowledge, skills, and abilities, and what you should do with them. How
Mhm.
you can do an analysis of yourself using the SWOT, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Yeah.
What you can do with that. And then there's other things about like suggestions, like getting an opportunity to speak somewhere to your not necessarily a big audience, but maybe a small audience, a group
Mhm.
that's in town, or maybe go somewhere where you want to go. Because a lot of times I speak at places I haven't visited before, just so I can go see them.
Yeah.
And I get to speak and meet a lot of people. 'Cause people want to meet you if you're a speaker. They don't
Mhm.
necessarily want to meet you if you're an attendee, and which
Yeah.
is it's fine for me either way. But it's always
Yeah.
nice that because you give them a reason to talk to you.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so I put little things in there, things that people can do. I give a lot of actionable steps, and I have a free workbook that goes with this too. Once they get the book, they can go online and put the order number in for their book, and they can get
I
the free
see.
workbook. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a I have a QR code in the book. I'm gonna show it to you real quick. The QR code, um, right
Oh, I
there.
see. Okay. Yeah.
So when you order a book, you usually get an order number.
Mhm.
It's just available through Amazon. You'll get a
Yeah.
number right away, and you can get it whether you get Kindle or softcover or hardcover.
Mhm.
There are all
Mhm.
options out there,
Okay.
but it's just a way of organizing the actual steps so they can kind of go through it and then write out notes to themselves.
Mhm.
Get a plan.
Yeah. So, what steps can human resources, leaders, or even upper management in a company take to make sure that they're really looking at their team as a whole for talent and not just the loudest people in the room.
When I hire, because I'm not in HR, but I do stuff that supports HR, just like
Sure.
HR
Yeah.
should follow up. And so when I interview people, I ask questions about how they work with the team and I evaluate them on how they work with the team I'm hiring them to work with.
Mhm.
Because I want people that are there to share what they know. They want not necessarily be there to dole out orders because
Mhm.
it's a different world outside the military, and that's a big learning point I took when I retired, that you can't just order somebody to do something because they can up and quit.
Yeah.
And they also don't necessarily have to take the orders.
Mhm.
You'd think that they wanna do the thing that you want them to do, but it's not that way in the outside the military.
Yeah.
So,
That's for sure.
so I want people to be able to work with their teammates, and if you're all supporting the same objective, you're on the same team.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things I'll look at. Ask them all sorts of questions about team dynamics. Because my boss,
Mhm.
will ask some basic questions about when you think you can start and clearance, stuff like that. He'll ask the basic stuff, but I ask that, and then I also have somebody on my team that I'll bring on board if I'm asking them to work in a certain area, because
Mhm.
I want them to be able to fly the flag and tell me whether or not they're BSing me if they really know what they're
I
talking
see.
about.
Yeah.
Like when I have a system administrator, applying for a job. I don't know everything sysadmins do, but my sysadmin does, so they can tell me. And so I bring them on board, and then we all agree on who we want to hire, and that's worked really well for my team.
Yeah. Yeah. I can tell you that as an HR leader, I do recommend companies have a variety of different people do the interview and then make a collective decision because everybody does present differently and everyone asks different questions, like you said. And so that can be a strategic way to get the best hire for your team for sure. So I'm glad that you see that. So, how does an introvert show up in what would you recommend to an introvert who is they're applying for a promotion or applying for a job? It might be nerve wracking to be in that situation. What advice would you have for an interviewee to put their best foot forward, even though they might be nervous by being an introvert?
Well, honestly, I start off with taking notes. I have
Hmm.
notes I bring in with me, whether I'm in person or, actually, I can never say that I've been online because I've never done an online interview.
Mm,
I know that that's pretty popular now,
it
but
is. Yeah.
I don't I've never done that. I've always done mine in person, but I've
Hmm.
always brought notes with me, and when I'm in person, because I have spoken publicly,
Yeah.
I feel comfortable at an interview.
Hmm.
I don't realize how nervous I am until after I leave,
Yeah.
and then I feel like I have to brush off the nerves,
Yeah.
but, I really believe in notes. I believe in researching the people
Hmm.
that you're gonna interview with, get on LinkedIn and check them out.
Yeah. For sure.
you know, you can always ask who's coming in an interview,
Hmm.
and if you don't do that, I think you're hurting yourself because it also offers you an opportunity to find out if you have anything in common. Because if you
Yes.
can find stuff in common, it really helps you,
Yeah.
especially if you have like goals. If you guys
Hmm.
have both done something the same,
Yeah.
or if anything like that.
Yeah. So, what I hear you saying is that introverts should prepare for their interview in a few different ways. And this is advice that I also share with anyone for interviewing. So, first, to make sure you really know yourself and prepare the notes for what you want to say so you don't forget it. And then, second, that you should absolutely research the people that you're going to interview with on LinkedIn. There is a situation that I have personally been in where it wasn't an interview that I was going to, but it was a networking meeting to meet somebody new that I didn't know. And through looking at her LinkedIn and her interests, I not only realized that she was also a diehard fan of the Chicago Cubs, but she went to the same college that I did in Illinois. And so just by doing that research and looking her up and looking through her whole profile, I was able to make a connection with her. And that immediately eased my nerves walking into this room where I didn't know her to be able to say, but we have this in common. And that's really helpful.
Yeah, and that'll help you get in with the interviewer because you're talking to them about stuff they have in common. And so when you tell them, like, say, if I went to the same school as somebody like you did, that I'd be able to point out certain things that I only knew that I could really say that yes, I really went to that school
Yeah.
because they're gonna get checked. They're
Yeah.
gonna check
Yeah.
the background.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. For sure. So I also teach people how to network. And networking can tend to be very challenging for introverts. I hear all the time people say networking is really hard for me because I'm an introvert. So, what advice would you have for introverts who want to be successful with networking?
Now, for networking, I usually ask, "Hey, who's going?"
Well, yeah, to
I
research
always
first to know who's going. Yeah, that's great
yeah, 'cause
advice.
and I don't necessarily need to know if I wanna talk to that person or not, but I wanna know who I can rely on if I need introduction to somebody else.
Yeah,
Because I know that if I'm gonna go somewhere and somebody else is going somewhere, they don't necessarily wanna babysit me,
right.
and I don't necessarily wanna babysat, but I do wanna know that it's somebody I could turn to when I see somebody I wanna meet and
Yeah,
maybe they know them.
yeah.
And so it's always good to talk because I can't tell you how many times I've gone into networking events and hated it because I've
Mm-hmm.
always felt, you know, I wanna find my way out the door real quick. I'll go
Mm-hmm.
in there, I'll say, "I'm gonna stay 1 hour," and then I'm gone. So
Mm-hmm.
I do recommend that. Set a time limit for yourself so that you know you can leave.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have a good excuse to leave sometimes. Sometimes I just say, "I gotta go,"
Yeah. I think
and
that's fine.
I say goodbye to the host and I leave.
Mhm.
I wish networking events didn't have no host socials because those are so hard.
Yeah.
Networking is not the easiest thing. I think if you just show up for a little bit and then leave,
Mhm.
talk to a couple people, look ahead and say, If I could just meet one person, who would I meet?"
Mhm. Oh my gosh. You're touching on a lot of the tips that I give for networking too, is to go with a buddy or at least check out to see who's there. I personally, I actually, people always assume I'm really extroverted, but in all the assessments, I am right on the line. I am right on the line of introvert and extrovert. And so I even like to go with a networking buddy. And it helps me to at least know that there's somebody in the room that I can engage with. And then from there, we can both meet people together. But I think that that really helps. And then the other thing I would say that I love what you said about is just set a time limit. Like, you don't have to go and be something that you're not. If you're not the kind of person who can hang out for 2 hours, go for 45 minutes, right? Like, make it work for you.
Yeah, and I usually call my husband and tell him I'm only going for this amount of time. He's like, "Stay the whole time." Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm
No,
not gonna
thank
do
you.
that.
I mean, I'm a firm believer that people have to find their own networking style, and that is influenced by introvert and extrovert, certainly, but it's influenced by other things too. And I think that there's no one right way to be a networker. I teach something that I think really relates to this, and actually is a way. Now that I think about it, is a way that introverts could really succeed. So, I think the old adage is to be the most interesting person in the room, but now it's more about being the most interested person in the room.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so if you're an introvert, prepare 4 or 5 questions that you might ask somebody. And then when you have those questions that you think could be conversation starters, you actually don't have to you be the center of attention. You can actually make somebody feel great by being interested in them.
yeah. That's why I like speaking events where the networking is in between the days
Yeah.
because you've already been to some of their talks.
Yes.
So you
Mhm.
can bring that up in conversation, but you can also, usually people don't get there as early as you do as a speaker.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you want to meet other people and you go there. And there's usually food, some finger foods.
Mhm.
I usually get a soda when I'm there.
Yeah.
And, there's people drinking wine and stuff, but there's always a line to stand in,
Mhm.
to get the stuff. But I think that when people do that, it's good because the next time you go, you might recognize them and it's a lot easier the second time.
Yes, that is great advice. I think often people of all types of people will go to a networking event and leave and be like, my target customer wasn't there, or I didn't get any business today. And it really does take 3 to 4 times going to the same type of event, the same organization, to really know if that is the place where you should spend your time, for
Yeah.
sure.
I spoke at an event a couple of years ago for Lean Six Sigma, and
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 really good friends that I've been in the same conference with, like, 2 or 3 times already, and so we always get a group photo together,
Yeah.
and we do dinner together. They make it I look forward to going because they're there,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know? and at lunch, we don't sit together. We don't sit together at meals, at the meal for the event,
Mhm.
but, we do hook up afterwards and catch
Yeah.
up on the day.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm also a fan of virtual networking. I feel like in-person networking is important and virtual networking is easily as important in the crazy hyper-connected world that we live in. Tell me how you approach virtual networking as an introvert.
I'm probably not the best person to ask this because virtual networking scares me to death. Um,
Okay.
I I get nervous if people put me in a room.
Mhm.
You know how Zoom you can assign rooms to people?
Yes, yes, those
I get
Zoom
so
rooms.
nervous, and
Yeah.
I did that, like, last year.
Mhm.
I was learning about PR,
Yeah.
and so I went to this PR networking event just
Yeah.
to meet other people that were also interested in it,
Okay.
and I was so nervous. They put me in a room but they gave us some questions to ask or questions to talk about.
Okay.
So we had to talk about the questions as a small
Okay.
group, and then we had, like, 15 minutes, and then we were brought back in the main room. We had to debrief everybody what we talked about.
Okay.
So that was easy. So I can't tell you as an introvert, how to feel about that, but if you're the one organizing the event, make sure to give some questions to people so that
Mm.
they know what to do.
I think that is such great advice because event planners, our goal is an event planner. And I say our because, gosh, in human resources, we always were the event planners for the company, at least for the employee side. To think of as the event planner, what things can we do to make introverts more comfortable? And, those scripts or questions that just help the conversation get started would be really impactful. I love that you said that.
Yeah, and they also tell us who to speak first. They'll tell us go by alphabet,
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
or last name.
Those are some really good tips. Now, how about virtual networking with LinkedIn? Is that something that you feel you're more comfortable with as an introvert?
I love LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every day.
Okay.
I schedule my post for like 7:30 in the morning because I'm
Mhm.
working that time of day, and I don't want my boss at my full-time job to think that I'm screwing around on LinkedIn.
Right,
But I
right.
do answer stuff during workday on LinkedIn because it is a business tool.
It is,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
yeah, but I met somebody in another group, on a Facebook group that she and I are both also on LinkedIn, and then
Mhm.
I found out that I met her sister years before that.
Wow.
And now her sister works for my company, the company I
Wow.
work with. And so, it's a very small world.
Yeah. It
But, yeah, I like LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's great. I think people need to be very careful what to put on LinkedIn. I
Mhm.
don't put my phone number anywhere on LinkedIn, and don't be afraid to block people.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think that as I think about being an introvert and using a LinkedIn as a tool, I hope that people find it a little bit easier to do networking on LinkedIn because they can really think about what they say before they post or comment or DM somebody. And gosh, LinkedIn is not going anywhere. Virtual networking is part of the future. And so I always say that like modern day networking has a two-part formula. It's in-person events and it's virtual networking through LinkedIn and a lot of the platforms out there that encourage networking digitally. And then we have it at in our hands on our phone all the time. So
Yeah.
I personally have found that I can make some pretty good networking strides using LinkedIn.
Yeah, I've been on LinkedIn for about 10 years now,
Mhm.
and I didn't start using it till a little bit after I retired because I didn't even
Mhm.
know what LinkedIn was. And
Yeah.
then I had a friend of mine from high school asked me, why aren't you on LinkedIn?" But, I actually joined. But it's a quick story. I got connected to somebody on LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
his name sounded really familiar to me. And so one day I asked him, "Hey, is your dad this person? Because this guy looks so young." It
Yeah.
turned out I went to first grade with this guy.
Oh my gosh.
It was the guy I was asking about. It was
Huh.
him, and he's like a seven-time speaker. He's done 2 or 3
Wow.
TEDx. He's a seven-time speaker champion.
Mhm.
So it was really cool to meet him, but also that we have so much in common. But
Yeah.
first grade, he actually showed me my first grade picture. It was funny. We
Oh
had our
my
first
gosh.
picture.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you found each other on LinkedIn?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it was just like It's the coolest thing ever.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I reconnected with somebody that I knew from 1991, back before cell phones and internet
Yeah,
and all those kinds of things. I reconnected with her a few years ago on LinkedIn, and it's been amazing to, have that ability to find people digitally and connect with them professionally again as an adult. It's been great.
it is. And it's nice to see to be able to see who's where, because
Yeah.
one thing that people don't they forget to look at is when they're looking for a job.
Hmm.
If they're interested in another company, they forget to look at see who may have been where somewhere previously.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
look for places that people are now, but
Hmm.
they're careful and they look at where somebody's been previously. If people
Hmm.
have a really good fleshed out, profile,
Yeah.
they'll see that, "Oh, so and so was at the company." You can ask them why they left or
Hmm.
why they didn't stay or what could have made them stay, and
Yeah.
sometimes that gives an in too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Do you think that there's something that HR leaders or just leaders in general unintentionally do to I would say I guess like to showcase extroverts? Like I don't know that they intentionally do it. I certainly never did. But are there any corporate practices that come to mind where they're more designed for extroverts to succeed?
Where you're looking for somebody to be in charge of something.
Mm.
Like when you're in school as a kid, they would look for line leaders,
Yeah.
and they may take the first person who raises their hand.
Mhm.
Sometimes they gotta just rotate it.
Yeah.
Rotate it, give people a fair shot. You can ask for volunteers. As an introvert, sometimes you just won't volunteer.
Yeah.
Right? You think that, "Oh, they'll recognize I'm good for that." But
Mhm.
sometimes you just
Mhm.
gotta say, "I'm the person you need."
Yeah.
But, if the leaders out there making those decisions would choose somebody, not necessarily because they're loudest, but just choose
Right.
somebody that they think they could do a good job, or ask people. Ask your team, "Hey, who do you think could be the best person to lead this?"
Yeah.
They can
Yeah.
say themselves they want, but they're probably gonna say somebody else.
Mhm. Mhm. Now, are there any training classes that you had in your past that you feel have helped you, uh, with being more of your true self as an introvert?
Um, I don't I don't know of any classes. I took a lot of leadership classes when I was in the
Uh-huh.
Navy,
Mhm.
so those just taught me how to speak up,
Yeah. Okay.
but, not necessarily an introvert because in the military, I don't recall anybody call me introvert or extrovert.
Mhm.
We did talk about, like, the disc surveys and stuff like
Yeah, the
that.
DISC assessment, yeah.
Yeah, to see where people fit and what
Mhm.
kind of people you need near a team, but they never really called out introverts and extroverts.
Yeah.
You know, it was based on your job. If your job said you did this, then you did it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes sense in the military for sure because like you said, getting promoted there had more criteria that were black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, for any introvert who might be listening who does feel overlooked, what is one shift that you hope they walk away with after reading your book or hearing this conversation?
Well, to not be afraid to share what you know.
Mhm.
You can lead a lessons learned discussion. You can have a lunch and learn, which I'm
Mhm.
a big fan of lunch and learns because a lot of
Yeah.
companies they don't allow you to work through lunch. So you might want to do something fun like lunch learn and have everybody just bring the lunch, brown bag it in, or you
Yeah.
know, if you get your company to pay for lunch, good luck. But
Yeah.
sometimes that happens. But just do something where you can share what you know, and people remember you for that, and that gives
Mhm.
you a better opportunity to be looked at later on for other positions of
Yeah.
management or leadership, and also gives you more confidence because people will continue to come to you when they know that you'll share what you know, and you're
Mhm.
not scared to you're not scared to share, and that you're not selfish. I call being
Mhm.
selfish when you don't share what you know.
Yeah.
Then it makes people like you a lot more, and they want you on their team.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. So even if you're introverted, don't be scared to share what you know because that is just a way to build your credibility and to really just showcase what you have in a natural setting instead of like being somebody that you're not.
Yeah, I mean, even if it comes down to somebody just saying, "How do I do this?" and you showing them how to do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, you can have SOPs everywhere, but
Yeah.
sometimes somebody just needs somebody to sit you down and say, "Go here, go here, go here."
Mhm. Mhm.
And you can do
Yeah.
it virtually too if you can share your screens. You
I totally agree. Yes.
you can do that. It's not just people in an office setting. It
Yeah,
works
for
works
sure.
for remote as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have to use technology to our greatest advantage. And in this day and age with hybrid work and remote work and, even just days where we take working from home on
Mhm.
occasion, having that ability to use technology to our advantage can really help. And I do see how it can help an introvert too, because maybe they're not standing up in front of a room, but they can share their screen and share their knowledge. And that knowledge builds credibility. And with that credibility, opportunities come.
It does.
Well, thank you so much for your insight today. I ordered your book and I cannot
Oh,
wait
thank
to read
you.
it. Yes, I have a little pile here of books that my friends have written and I do love to read them and love to gain insight because you don't have to be a crazy big famous author to have great information to share. And like I said, I even have something called networking school where I teach people how to network. And I have a whole module in there about introverts and how to just network as your own self. You don't have to network like me, you don't have to network like anybody else. How can you network in a way that feels comfortable to you? So I'm excited to read it so that I can share even more knowledge with the introverts in the program.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the People Success Circle. If this topic resonated with you, make sure you share this episode with a friend, leave a 5-star review, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next week on the next episode of the People Success Circle podcast.